Welcome to the Opinionated Benchwarmers podcast, episode 193. Your Opinionated Benchwarmers are back to do what we do best, and that's discuss sports. Both my brothers in here today. How you fellas feeling?
Man, it's off season, man. We at the peak of the off season. We about a month away. Actually, I think we get football this month. We got the free agency going crazy. I'm feeling good. To answer your question, I'm feeling good. I'm ready to rock it, man. I'm ready to get through this episode and cover so much.
Yeah, like you said, we got kind of a lot on the horizon. At first it's kind of when you feel like you're getting into that little bit of a lull from a sports standpoint, and kind of get into that brief period of a little boredom. But I feel like NBA free agency has kind of been carrying us a little bit right now. Of course, too, we got fantasy football that's gonna be on the horizon and stuff like that coming too. So it's still always an exciting time from a sports standpoint. But I'm not gonna hold it, man. Let's go ahead and jump into it.
Yeah, man, I'm feeling good. I'm off today, so been a long week. So what better way to spend it here, recording with you fellas. We'll jump right into it. NBA free agency been popping. It's like the NBA is really off season is competing with the NFL off season because NFL off season we haven't even gotten into that yet, but it's been popping. But the NBA free agency, it was pretty interesting. We got a couple interesting things going on, and we're gonna start with the Lakers, obviously. As being fans, if you're new listeners and new to us, we're all Lakers fans, and that's what brought us together. So just starting off with that first signing with DeAndre Ayton, the former 2018 first round first pick. We signed him to a 2 year deal, 1 year player option there to tip the scale. Obviously, it's no secret if you've been watching NBA playoffs, the blaring hole in our roster was the lack of height that we had and the lack of a center thereof made Gobert look like 2001 Shaquille O'Neal in the playoffs when he dropped 20 and 12 on us. But, we finally got our big guy. So we just here to divulge our thoughts here, man.
Yeah, no, I'll just say even Rob Pelinka at the end of the season when he talked about this, he mentioned that they were trying to build a roster on the fly, right? This offseason was a chance to really land the plane and to really dig into this team and really try to put some pieces around Luka and build a team like we need to. I mean, just looking at the moves that happened, right? Dorian Finney-Smith walked, right? He left. That opened up the option for the Lakers to grab Ayton, the Lakers to grab Jake LaRavia, right? Those two guys right now. If you ask me right now, who would I rather have? I would rather have the two guys, Ayton and Jake LaRavia, who's a young talent on our roster. So obviously we brought back Jackson Hayes last night as we record this on Friday. So again, great moves that we making. Like you mentioned, we needed a big man. It was time. I mean, I like Jackson Hayes, but he's not a starting center. He's an energy guy. He's a guy that's going to come in. He's going to bring energy. He's a guy that's going to give you 10, 15 minutes, but he shouldn't be playing 20 plus minutes, man. He's just not built for that, as we've seen in the playoffs. But again, I love the move. I want to see how this team gel, and I want to see if we make another move. I think we still need some defense. I still think we need some defense, especially in our projected starting lineup.
Yeah, I think that as y'all have already said and alluded to, obviously the center position was the biggest position of need on the Lakers. And I think that you went out and got a guy that is looking to kind of reassert himself really within the league. We know that DeAndre Ayton came out of Arizona with the high expectations. That's why he was the number one pick, as you mentioned, Rob, in that 2018 draft. And we saw some highs, when he was in Phoenix. We saw some things that he did in that run that they had to the NBA Finals. We've seen him be a perennial double-double guy. And at times, of course, you see the full potential there. And then at times, you don't always see the motor, and you don't always see him seeming committed every single game. And sometimes you see him maybe seem just a little bit kind of soft or lackadaisical at times. And so when looking at the scope of it, I think that we look at the player holistically. And I'm not just putting on the Lakers glasses when I look at them, but the reason why I say these things is I think that we've seen guys in the past come to LA and kind of reshape their images. One of the ones that I think about first is Malik Monk. He came to LA to kind of get his value back really within the league. And we saw him to be able to go and sign a deal in Sacramento. That was the best deal that he had thus far in his career, off of having that opportunity to play under the bright lights. the opportunity to play with the TV exposure. And so I think that when you look at DeAndre Ayton, you look at a guy that has the potential and the ability, but now he just has to have that brought out in him. And who better to bring that out than the combination of Luka and LeBron to have him focused? We've even seen in times past, obviously, he and Luka have the same agent. He and Luka have had a relationship since they entered the league together, a pretty good relationship. Obviously, they talked about Luka signing off on the deal, which we know is the biggest thing right now for the Lakers franchise, because you're hoping that on August 2nd, Luka will be putting pen to paper and signing an extension. And so I think that DeAndre Ayton, is a good pickup. People will kind of, say, oh, this or that, it's not a good pickup. Obviously there's a reason why he got bought out and all of that. But I'm still just looking at the potential, and I'm looking at what he can bring. He is a guy that's a live threat, which is something that Luka excels with. He also has a touch in the mid-range game. And I think that he will be honestly an asset to the Lakers. And as Los mentioned already, I would agree with you too, Los. I would take those two guys over DFS. So
Yeah, I mean, when I look at it, you look at Luca and just his tendencies and how he can elevate the level of play of players. And I look at what he did with Daniel Gafford. He was a guy that was trying to find his way throughout the league. Kind of lost his way in Orlando. Spent some time with the Wizards, but when he spent time in Dallas, you could see that his level of play was elevated, and it led to a big contract because Luca plays well with those dynamic big men and is throwing lobs. And like we joked around, Aiden could have possibly, you said it, Ramon could possibly be averaging 20 and 12. 13 of those points are going to come from lobs from Luca. It wouldn't be, far-fetched to say that. So I think it's the right piece. It's the right move. I do like the deal. It's just a 2-year deal. So if it goes well for him, obviously he'll opt out. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. It gives us a little flexibility. If he plays bad, then we stuck with him on the roster for another year. So I think it's a prove me deal, and I think it's what we needed. But like you said, I think that here is where we have to have a deeper conversation. And I kind of got to go into LeBron. I know that if you listen to this podcast, how we go back and forth about LeBron and how I certainly feel about him, and I think that there's more to it, right? You opt into this deal, $52 million at 41 years old, and you're entering your 23rd season, but yet there's rumblings and behind the scenes that you said through your agent Rich Paul that you're waiting to see what the Lakers are going to do. What the heck do you feel like the Lakers can do when you're taking up a greater portion of our salary cap and trying to have an apron and you expect us to build a roster? I look into it and I say that LeBron does care about winning. I feel as though, but for him to act like he's not trying to win a championship, I mean, he's putting us in a bad spot. I don't want to. I don't think for me to say this as a true Laker fan and being objective, us getting DeAndre Ayton does not make us a championship contending team. And with the salary cap and how it works with the first apron and the second apron, I'm not sure what quality veteran we're going to sign that's going to tip the scale to win a championship. So once again, which one is it, LeBron? He leaves us in the balance, right? He says one thing and does another. But him opting into 52 million, that doesn't do us any favor, especially with us having to extend Luca, who deservingly so will have somewhat of a similar deal of 50 plus million. I just don't see it. LeBron again, I said it before. I don't know if I said it on his podcast. I'm ready for him to retire because he is holding us hostage right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, the pony show, right? It's to this point where it's like every offseason is a pony show. Right now, we look at it, this is the first time LeBron has went in on a last year of a deal like this, right? Before he kind of leveraged this and he's kind of had it or went into an extension or had that. This is the last time he's literally playing on a last year of his deal, which tells you everything you need to know about the Lakers and their mindset. The time when we moved on, when we made that trade back in February or January, we made that trade, that made it to where it was no longer LeBron's team. It was no longer LeBron's decisions, no longer moving on LeBron's timeline. Because again, AD was never going to be that guy, that one guy. We thought he could be, he was never going to be that guy. But when we made that trade, we told LeBron at that point, like, okay, you lost leverage at this point. And so right now, what you see is LeBron trying to find some way to have leverage. Yes, he's a household name, and he is probably one of the greatest players to ever play it. Not probably, he's definitely one of the greatest players to ever play the game. But at this point, when you're about to be 41 this year in December, and you're being paid 52 million, and you still dropping these statements like you mentioned about I'm waiting to see what the team does, or if we're going to trade him or not, or it's rumors that he might want to move, might not want to move, all these different things you plan these games. It's like, let's cut it out, man. Like, at this point, let's really cut it out. Your value is not what it is anymore, and again, I'm ready to move on too, because I would like to see our team get younger. I would like to see our team. We see the two rosters that went to the finals this year. They were young, hungry teams, right? It's not any superstar teams. It was young, hungry teams built from the ground up. And I think that's where we just have to start developing our talent and developing our young talent. And that's going to be hard to do when you have a household name like LeBron there, who again is demanding greatness, who's demanding us having the top tier rosters, who's demanding us to trade our young players to bring in different players. Like, that's not how that's going to work. That's not how you're going to win a championship. And I agree with you, Rob. Right now, looking at our roster, when you're talking about Luka starting at our point guard, Austin Reeves starting at our shooting guard, obviously LeBron, then you got Rui, then you got Ayton. You look at that starting five, who would you say is the best defender in that starting five? I mean, it ain't Luka.
Yeah.
Reeves is okay. Rui's not that good. LeBron is
Yeah.
about to be 41 years old. Ayton is not known for
Yeah.
being a defender. So it's like, are we just going to outscore teams all night? Like, it's something has to be shaken up within that roster. We have to bring in some defenders to start. So again, I agree
Yeah.
with you. Right now, I wouldn't say this is a championship team. Maybe we can get past the first round now that we have a center, but that's probably it.
Yeah, no, I agree with, everything that both of y'all have already said. I would say as well too, with the statement that was dropped from Rich Paul, like, to me, those things are not productive for the Lakers at all. If you are saying that you want to have an opportunity to contend and you want to see what the Lakers can do, those are kind of, backdoor conversations that can be had. You've been able to do things as far as have conversations to have the team draft your son. Like, you should be able to have rapport with the front office enough to be able to have closed door conversations with them and not drop those things through your agent in the media. I just don't like the way that all of that feels and smells. And it's never productive to do those kind of things with the team. As y'all mentioned, it is one of the kind of precarious positions that we find ourselves in because we are lifelong Lakers fans. And so what some Lakers fans slash LeBron fans like to hear may not be always what we truly feel, because we will be here once LeBron is gone. Those guys will not be here as Lakers fans likely once LeBron is gone. And so we're looking for the long-term viability of the organization and franchise and not just this short-term tenure. Now, I do feel ultimately I would like to see the Lakers still make, another move or two in this offseason. I think that honestly it has to come via trade, because I don't see anybody from a free agent standpoint that's going to move the needle to, as y'all mentioned, get the Lakers into championship contention and get some wing help that honestly we need at this particular point. So I think that if they're going to get there, it's honestly going to come through trade, whether that's this offseason or whether it's going to be the trade deadline.
Yeah, the sad part about it when I look at it is, and then I'm wrapping this up, but if unless y'all have something else, but it's just you can't have your cake and eat it too, is my point. Like, if you want $52 million, obviously you're gonna give up the opportunity to sign somebody that's worth maybe $25 million. You probably could get somebody above average, a defender, a 3-and-D guy, which we need a solid one. When I think about the guys that's making 25 million, you're not gonna be able to do that if you take it all. I just feel like we have to really pinpoint this point in his career about what LeBron represents and who he is. I mean, he's showing us. I'm not judging anything but his decisions on the floor and his what he says he wants to do and how he feels. 52 million, he could have took 30 million and gave us a little 25 more million to play with to fill out this roster. But again, you can't say that I want to win a championship. I want to see what the Lakers are going to do and then hold us hostage with a contract like
Right.
that.
So I will say that it probably would have had to be a more drastic cut just based upon how like the cap works. So even if he, let's just say, dropped 20 million or 22 million off of his contract, it wouldn't have necessarily given us that spending power. It's still based upon how the cap works. It would probably have to be like a much more reduced contract from where we already sit cap space wise. So
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, we all agree though that we're not going anywhere with Aiden doesn't tip the scale, right? We all agree on that.
I'm
But
excited. I mean,
yeah,
sure, I'm excited about the move, and it's in the right direction. But we all agree that it's more things need to happen.
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't have much optimism, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say not much optimism. I mean, you still got Luca to me that it seems that he's gonna be potentially in the best shape we've seen him in a while. This is a guy that's, when he's right, is a perennial top three guy. And when you have a top three guy on your roster, that already sets you in a certain place. So I think that, maybe not the excitement to say, hey, 100% we know this is a finals driven team, but I think that it puts you in the mix. That's what I'll say about it.
Championship or bust for me, man.
No, I feel
Championship
you,
or
but I
bust.
think that this at least puts you in the mix. It doesn't put you to me in the place that we were where we just got completely thrashed in the first round. Like I think that this puts you in that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got teams making moves as well. We go through some of the big ones. I think the next big story will be the Milwaukee Bucks and what they did in trading for Miles Turner. First of all, you confused as to why, Indiana, they came up a little short in the finals, obviously, but not by much, and you give up a big, huge piece like Miles Turner. But the interesting part about that is that the Bucks waived Damian Lillard and will spread the rest of his $113 million salary over 5 years. That's $22 million a year that Dame will make from the Bucks, no matter what he does after he signs with another team. Very interesting move by both sides.
Yeah, no, definitely. When you give Miles Turner, you steal him away from your East Coast opponent, right? That's a huge deal. He signed for a 4 year, 107 million dollar deal. And, you had to give up, you had to let go of a Dame. So with this move, I mean, the Milwaukee Bucks was in a tough situation. They have a star that wants to win and wants to win another championship. He's made that clear, right? But you also have his pretty much his Robin that went down is going to be missed majority of this year, if not all of this year, with an Achilles tear. So they had to do something drastic. It puts them in uh, an uncertain situation because now their roster is unbalanced. Now you just have big man up there. You pretty much replaced Brooke Lopez with Miles Turner, and you lost your point guard. I mean, a lot can happen between now and then. It's just again, I don't look at their roster and say, okay, cool, championship right now. Again, it's still early, but it's like I don't know. If I'm Giannis, I'm kind of looking like, okay, I might want out of here. I want to move on. I want out of here. I want something different, a fresh start right now. And I think it's no better time than now to do that, as you can see the tides kind of shifting there.
Yeah, and there's conflicting reports on kind of how Giannis feels about the recent moves that have happened. There are reports that were saying that he was, in the camp to try to get Miles Turner there. And then there's reports that are saying that he didn't like what they did as it relates to Dame. So, still not too sure, of how things are going to land and trend with Giannis. If this is a move that causes him to maybe get back in the ship a little bit, then it's worth it for the Milwaukee Bucks because their biggest thing, honestly, at this point is to preserve, having Giannis on the roster. I think that that's number one priority, and then a championship, of course, is the number two priority. Now, the thing about it, ultimately, for this, I don't really see how this move really moves the needle for them. I like Miles Turner as a player, but I mean, he's a okay for me. He's an okay guy on the team, and when you really look at it, to me, ultimately, you're paying almost 50 million a year for the Miles Turner acquisition because you're not only paying his contract, now you having to, as you've already talked about, pay Dame the 22 million a year for not, really contributing anything to your roster. So in essence, you're to get Miles Turner on your team, you said that he's basically a 50 million per guy a year, which is not something that I ultimately see for Miles Turner. And like you said, I mean, the roster balance, I think right now, Kevin Porter Jr. is your point guard, and I don't really see how he can really be that. I mean, really, the ball is going to have to be in Giannis's hand to more so play that role for the team. And it's just a team that honestly is kind of a mid-ground type team. Now, what'll help them is that the East is going to kind of be wide open this upcoming year. I mean, let's call it for what it is. The East sucks at this point. Like, there's no really great teams out there. We know what, of course, has happened with Boston with the injury to Jason Tatum. We know what has happened with Tyrese Halliburton injury wise, and that's made the East wide open. So maybe you can slip into something, but not really optimistic on their end. And then the last thing I'll say from the Pacers side of it, it got to be very disappointing to be an Indiana Pacers fan. You see a team that just had a chance, at a championship, that just made that run to the finals, one of the best runs that they've ever made in franchise history. Obviously, their star player gets hurt. And one of the first things that the front office decides is that, you know what? We're not going to pay the luxury tax. We're going to stay cheap over here. As long as we can kind of stay, afloat enough to, get into the playoffs and get some revenue from there and all of that. We've decided that as a franchise, that's enough for us. And as a fan, that's a tough pill to swallow. Now, what they did do was smart that they weren't thinking at the time was when they made that trade, I think during the finals to get their pick back for this upcoming year. That turned out to probably be one of the best things that they've done, but still having this cheap mentality, that's never going to cause the franchise to be able to win big.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know what the hell the Bucks are doing, honestly. They tend to make these types of moves. They won a championship, what was that, in 2021? And then you let Drew walk basically, or you traded him away, or I don't know how you lose him. He was a
Well,
very
that was the
important.
Dame trade. He
Yeah,
was a
Dame
part of the Dame
trade.
trade.
Yeah. I mean, Damian Lillard is not going to fit with Giannis, right? We already talked about this on probably some podcasts ago, maybe last year. I mean, they both need the ball in their hands to be effective. Dame has proven to be a shell of himself. It's not a coincidence how you go down from, being, a top scorer, top five scorer in the league, and then you go down with Giannis. He needs the ball in his hands to be able to create and score. That we knew that wasn't going to work. And you got rid of Drew, who fits with Giannis perfectly. He doesn't need the ball, can play off ball, and still can score and can defend. And now you trade for Miles Turner. I'm not sure what that really does for you because Miles Turner is okay to me in my eyes. He's a piece, but it's like, oh, okay, that makes you a contender. No, I don't see how they got better with this move. They don't have any picks. They don't have any future in this role. All they have is a Giannis making $52 million a year. If I was Giannis, man, he might, you really look at legacy and everything. It seemed like he bought his paper because I'd be out of there because they're not doing anything to make that roster better. So I mean that I feel bad for Giannis, but I don't because it seems like money is his objective here because he's not winning in Milwaukee. So
Yeah.
uh the other team is making some quiet good moves, and I mean the Nuggets are they cooking, man. The Nuggets, I mean, when you look at their playoff run, I mean they gave the Thunder fits in the playoffs, but they always lack that depth that we talked about. And I thought it was interesting that they made that move to get Cameron Johnson from Brooklyn. They traded away MJP, Michael Porter Jr. And I thought that was a really good move because they got two solid pieces back because they were able to sign Bruce Brown, which gave us fits in the playoffs a couple years ago. I really like what they're doing over there. I think that, even with Tim Hardaway signing there, what are y'all thoughts on the Nuggets and the moves they make? They've really spread out this roster and they really have given Jokic those outlets and those shooters that can knock down that open shot.
Yeah, I think they just, again, they made all the right moves this offseason. They're trying to rebuild that same image of that championship team they had, was that 2 years ago, 3 years ago? So they're trying to rebuild that same team. When you bring in a Tim Hardaway to kind of be your KCP type of guy, right? They lost KCP, who was kind of a glue guy. And then you bring back a Bruce Brown who was just so vital for them and what they did in that run, too. You bring that guy back and then you trade and you get a Cameron Johnson who's more who again I would say think has a little bit more upside than Michael Porter. Now, Michael Porter can be a sniper in himself, but so can Cam Johnson. So again, you bring in some fresh blood, some new blood that's kind of different, right? And changes things up and kind of, re-energize that team a little bit. I love everything that they did so far. We'll see what happened with Jonas Valanciunas. We'll see. Right now, the rumor is that he's going to probably go back overseas, and so that's probably going to open up some money for them once the trade is complete. He's going to get bought out and get left, so that's probably going to open up more money for them to make more moves. Again, I like what the Nuggets did. Again, I just wish they would go away. Just go away. Go away.
Yeah, no, I
They
completely.
they revived.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with everything that y'all said. You know, the first move with Cam Johnson. Now you got a guy too that to me naturally fits as a shooter off ball that's not going to necessarily be like a Michael Porter Jr. that is also looking for his shot. Like Cam is more of an opportunistic guy that's going to really thrive off of Jokic. And y'all have already kind of broken down everything. I think that I would give Denver an A, if not an A plus at this point. And it's honestly scary. The Valanciunas thing to me is a little scary because if they are able to open up some money and potentially make other moves with that, because even with that, mid-level exception, that doesn't just mean that you have to get one guy in that. I mean, we signed two guys with our mid-level exception. So that opens up, flexibility for them. And I'm just not really liking it, honestly, at this point.
Also, too, with the mid-level interception now, you can also trade it for a player too, starting this year. So they
Yeah.
can also make a deal and trade for a player into that. So it's again.
Yeah, the Nuggets not going anywhere. I mean, you talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. You see this. You see why teams are sad for so long in the Milwaukee Bucks. And then you see why teams are good for so long in the moves that the Nuggets have made. But moving along, man, I don't know if y'all been sleeping on it. I have, but Atlanta Hawks, man. They are cooking, man. They first make the trade for Kristaps Porzingis. Say what you want. When he's healthy, he's a top 30, top 40 type player in the league. And then, when you look at what they did and when they fleeced New Orleans and getting future picks in order for the Pelicans to move up in this year's draft. I mean, I absolutely love what they doing. The signing of Luke Kennard on the squad. They're really doing everything they can to give Trey Young their head man, make him happy. With the rumors that he was trying to get out of Atlanta, or that his time in Atlanta is done. Well, I guess they're answering that question. They're looking to keep Trey here, and they're looking to surround him around some talent so they can make a real clear run. But I like the moves. I think and you mentioned it earlier, Amon. The East sucks, so it's like, man, you really can compete. The Pacers are out of the way long as Halliburton is rehabbing that Achilles. But I mean, look, man, here come the Atlanta Hawks, man. Shout out to Atlanta.
Yeah, no, I think that, like you said, they've honestly been crushing it in the offseason. You look at a team that's also kind of taking the model to say, in building around Trey Young, we also going to put defenders around Trey Young. Like we know that Trey Young's biggest deficiency really is his defense. And so with having a guy, of course, like Dyson Daniels, already there, you brought in to kill Alexander Walker. There's also a two-way wing, defends and can shoot the ball. Like you said, man, Atlanta, they cooking. They moving in the right direction, and the East is wide open at this point. And so it would not shock me. This is Atlanta Hawks team that, some years back they made that run where they, of course, lost to. I think that was the year they lost to the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals. And so you may have a Hawks team that is able to kind of resurge to that particular point. I would say that they probably have had a top three off season at this point, in my opinion, as far as the teams that I have up there in the all-season rankings.
And you gotta love Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson and what they become. Then you still had they still got the number one pick, Raysher,
Yeah.
whatever his name is. I don't know what he was very quiet this season, but hey, bro, I like what they've done. I think that they've done a good job, and I think they're gonna be a team. They're gonna be a dark horse in the East this year because it's not hard to be a dark horse
Yeah.
in the East. And then Luke Kennard, you mentioned him, man, leading the league in 3-point percentage. That man, 43% from three. That is another kick out guy for Trey Young. I do like
Yeah.
Atlanta's
What
move.
college did Luke Kennard go to?
What college did he go to?
Duke. I'm just messing with
Oh, here we go.
y'all.
For the listeners, man, Ramon. For new listeners, Ramon is an avid Duke fan, so you got to mention that up. But look, man. Lastly, I think we could touch on this is the moves of Houston. We touched on the trade on last episode. If you hadn't done that, shout out to you. Make sure that you check out 192 where we broke down the Kevin Durant trade. But here we are again. They made some interesting move. I mean, Clint Capella. I mean, at this point, he is on the back half of his career, but that's more depth when you look at what they already have in Sengun, and I think that they do have some good pieces in extending Jabari. I like what the Houston Rockets are doing as far as after they have acquired Kevin Durant. And Houston, bro, they might be a real problem for us this year.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, it came to a point where I was just like, man, Houston's just signing anybody and everybody they want. Like the cap rules just did not apply to them. It was they just continued. They re-signed everybody they wanted to. Fred VanVleet, they brung in obviously you trade for a big contract like in Kevin Durant. Jabari Smith, like you mentioned, like again, they was doing everything that they wanted to do the whole time. And it's like what's going on? Like, can we stop? Like, they got Sagan on their roster. Like, again, man, they're gonna be a problem. Right now, I think
Yeah.
they have the second favorite odds to win it all right now. And so I can see why. I mean, again, we'll see how they mesh. Sometimes you get all this talent together and it's just not enough balls to go around. But again, I like what they did.
Yeah, the thing about it too, as y'all mentioned, I mean the DFS signing for them as well too, another wing defender that can shoot the basketball.
He
You
couldn't
look at
shoot
it.
worth the lick in the playoffs though for us.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we kind of used to that in Lakerland, but the thing about it, ultimately, they've created a very versatile roster. A roster that can play kind of almost any style of basketball. And then the thing about it is you have a roster where you have young talent that is still continuing to get better too. So we don't know, what the next step that Amin Thompson might make. Sengun is still, a relatively young player that's only becoming better and stepping into that all-star status and stratosphere. Y'all alluded to, of course, the re-signing of Jabari as well. He could continue to progress. Now he's going to be under the tutelage of Kevin Durant, as we talked about previously. So this is a team that, they had a great offseason, made great moves, and then we still don't know, the development of their young guys and what that's ultimately going to lead to. So they're a team that can be scary. They have a lot of defensive versatility on that team. And now, really with this offseason as well, they've made sure that they've shored up some things offensively because that's really what ultimately, in my opinion, caused them to lose that series against the Warriors. Not only the experience gap that was there, but really when they just needed a bucket, there were times where they just could not get a bucket. And you go and get one of the guys who's one of the most sure buckets in NBA history. So definitely Houston is cooking. They are cooking down there.
Yeah, I mean Fred Van Vliet, relying on him at 30 plus. I mean, I think that probably be their only weakness is probably at point guard. They're gonna need a little bit more out of him this year. And then hopefully maybe Reed Shepard tore it up in Kentucky. And a lot of
Yeah.
people forget about how special he was. So I mean, if he can take another leap to be a viable guard for them, I would say that's probably their only probably weakness. But even then, I mean, to have an opportunity to have somebody young that you're like, okay, this is your shot, you're in a really good spot. Uh, but I mean, out of all of these teams that move, I mean, we can go around as we wrap up. But I mean, who do you think had the best offseason, in your opinion, and who do you think had the worst?
I mean, I think we could hit it. I mean, I look at the Rockets probably having the best offseason. I say the other one for somebody else, but the Rockets, and then obviously, um, probably the Pacers would probably be the worst offseason, right? You were right at a pinnacle, you had a high point, and then you lose your star player, right, to injury, and then you literally the last game in the first quarter, and then you lose your most tenured player that's been on the team. So I'll say the Pacers.
Yeah, I mean, I would really kind of agree with you with both of those, honestly. But if I'm gonna go with somebody else, we talked about the Atlanta Hawks. They would probably be my second place team as far as off season wise. They fall into that top three, like I said. And to me, ultimately, I think still the Bucks are a loser. I don't see where they're going. I think that they're a loser.
Yeah, for me, I think the winner. I said it too, and probably made it obvious, but I really like what the Nuggets have done. They've retooled their roster, has spread out talent, and what they took the Thunder to seven, right? Or they took
Seven. They
they
took them to
yeah.
seven.
So I mean, they with six people, essentially six people. So you really have to look at that and say that they had a really wonderful offseason. And I say the worst. I mean, I'm about to bash the Pelicans, man. Shout out to New Orleans people that's listening to us. We are from Louisiana. The Pelicans, I don't know what the hell they doing. They got rid of David Griffin, who has a good sports mind. You trade for Derek Queen. How does he fit against Zion? They're essentially almost the same player. And then if you don't make the playoff this year, which you're not, you're giving up a lottery pick for this upcoming year. I don't know what they are doing. I think that they are tripping. This guy that they got, he don't know what he doing, man. So I
You know,
mean,
do
they're
Morris.
gonna be struggling for a while. Yeah, Do Morris don't know what he doing. But anyway, I think they did it again. Shout out to all the new listeners. Shout out to all the old listeners. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast, Opinionated Benchwarmers, wherever you like to listen to your podcast at. Make sure that you're subscribed to our YouTube as well. Just search Opinionated Benchwarmers. Hit the bell, subscribe so you can get this wonderful content. Until next time, we're out of here.
Later.